Good afternoon, class. I want to talk to you about the data types for our class, and I'm going to be using Python as an example for this. So everything I'm talking about is germane to Python. In Python, vanilla Python without any imports from other dictionaries or collections, we have three basic primitive data types. We have integers, we have floats, and we have strings. Starting with strings, those are just a collection of characters that are put together. We can do some interesting things with the strings. We can add strings together. We can pull characters out of a string. We can add characters into a string. We can analyze strings and do lookups in strings. We can do a lot of interesting things with strings, but they're non-mathematical data types. The next one we'll cover will be the integer. The integer is a non-decimal number. It can go, there is a limit, there's an upper limit. Let's call it like 100 trillion trillion. That's a huge number, all the way to the negative side of that. But it is a whole number. There is no 0.33. So if you divided 10 divided by 3, you would convert that new number to a float. A float is a number. It's a complex number. It's a real number. It represents all real numbers. So it includes decimal points, and you can do, more discrete mathematical operations with floats. So that is interesting about floats. Those are your three basic data types. You notice I did not mention date time in this, because date time in Python is not a primitive data type without a collection. A collection would be like a list, an array, or a library. It will have these definitions within them. And those collections can further define different attributes to a script. And I think in this class we're more or less talking about actually just raw data. Selections of raw data, but a collection can also be a library. It would be a collection of different terms, and it'll have certain code that goes with it, so that way you can create a new primitive type, which is date time. Kind of interesting. But yeah, an array, let's just kind of go through arrays real fast. An array is essentially a table. It can be one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional. It can have many dimensions to an array. And arrays can get complicated very, very, very fast. But the simplest way to think about arrays is a two-dimensional table like you'd see in Excel or a CSV file. Objects are the last of the data types we're talking about today. Objects are, you can store multiple series of data inside of an object. I use a lot of JavaScript for my coding, and JavaScript is a object-oriented script, and I created many different types of objects to fit a lot of different arrays or data points in there. For instance, for the massage therapy industry, every provider CE provider will have courses. They'll have sessions for those courses. They'll have instructors. They'll have their own name, their own contact information. So I've created for my business that I work for, this object called providers that had a whole bunch of different data types in there, like their date of creation as a provider within our system would be a date-time object or a date-time data type. And there would be how many courses they would have. That would be an integer, because you don't have 0.3 courses. You have 4 courses. You have 2 courses. I would have like their passing rate for their students. That would be a float, because you'd have a divisible number in there. You'd have, say, 100 students with 45 passing, and they're passing at this rate. that would convert over to a decimal number. And then their name would be a string. And what's interesting, I create this object, but to have a quick access to these objects I created, because there's more than just one provider, one CE provider, I would create an array and stick these objects in that array and would be able to search that array for the specific provider I would want to look at for any particular thing. Anyways, that is my little snippet on data types. Thank you.